All right, all of you freedom-loving boys and girls, whomever you are, wherever you are on this awesome blue marble of a planet we call Earth, Mark Centerline Systems. Hey, I love the fact, before I introduce the topic and our first guest, you know, I always kill a little bit of time, but I love the fact that I already had a comment saying, hey, dude, time's up. Let's go. Let's go. All right, Al, I got you. We're on top. So hi, Gene. Hi, Big Visk. Hi, Snowshoe Dave. And hi, Al. All right, I see all your guys' comments already. Hey, as always, I got a little bit of housekeeping before we introduce our guest. Tonight's topic, I didn't really know how to title it, so I just used that Lard Acton quote, you know, about power, you know, an absolute power corrupting absolutely. That's not quite the theme, but our guest tonight, former CIA officer, highfalutin lawyer, if you want to use them terms, but a really good guy, and he's doing some really good yeoman's work, and we're going to kind of talk about that, you know, just being in those type of entities and without unchecked, you know, without proper checks and balances, and how that can result in some pretty, you know, horrible things. And we'll tell one or two little war stories about our background and some kind of stuff around that note. But here we go. Here's what I'm going to just do as my housekeeping here. Yeah, I've only been into a minute. Just give everybody a little bit more time to catch up. But so for this live stream, and this live stream only, because it's been so much fun for me doing the live streams, we are doing a flash sale. So it's 30% off. Well, almost everything off my website. There's a couple things, and I'll read them because I don't actually make any money off these. These are like my lost leads, but it's 30% off everything on my website now through the end of this podcast. And that's it. And then that's the sale's over. And it's pretty simple. So I like saying winner, winner, chicken dinner. So the promo code is WWCD. So whiskey, Charlie Delta, WWCD, winner, winner, chicken dinner. And then the year 2024, all one little word, 30% off for just you great guys and gals who watch this, the live stream. The only things, just to let you know, and because it might not just show up how you see it on the website, but keepers, gear strap kits, the key DC, and shoulder straps, those are the only items that aren't on sale because I don't make any. I just try not to lose money. And if I give you that, I will definitely be losing a lot of money if I do that. So one more time, for just the duration of this live stream, 30% off for all of you great guys and gals who, you know, are stupid enough to come over and join little old me. And it's just the abbreviation for winner, winner, chicken dinner. So whiskey, Charlie Delta. So that's WWCD. And then the year 2024. And on that note, let us bring on our guest. Hey, Kevin, before I bring you on, give me a thumbs up. You good down there, sir? All right, here we go. Let's bring on our guest. Welcome, everybody, to the live stream. Kevin, I'm going to let him do his own intro. I'm just going to say Kevin and I met each other. I'm trying to figure this out. Was that 20 years ago, Kevin? Was that 2004? 2000?
February of 2006. So
okay, 2006. Yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, I was like, no, that's not right. Maybe it was 5, but yeah, 2006. Without further ado, everybody, take your hats off. Say hello to Kevin. Kevin, tell everybody over here in Centerline Systems a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to share, sir.
Yeah, Mark, so much for having me on. And first, you know, thanks to Mark for keeping my ass alive when I got over to that place with him in February of 2006. He'd been there for about 11 months, knew what was going on. I was just off a plane and didn't. And it was, I've deployed 8 times. It was, I think, certainly the most violent and dangerous place I was. But I did what Mark told me, and I stayed alive. And he left a series of very important human intelligence cases for me in perfect condition. So I will always be deeply grateful to him. Like Mark said, my name's Kevin. I'm from New York City originally. I did ROTC in college, spent 4 years in the Army doing a couple Balkan tours. Got out, went to law school, and was practicing at a Wall Street law firm at 9/11 when 9/11 happened. I lost some friends. Went back in the Army and was approached about joining CIA while I was there, and ended up spending 6-7 years in the agency. I got out subsequently and went back to practicing law, in part because of some things I saw about the agency and didn't really like. I'm back at the law firm that I was at on 9/11, and they've been very generous in letting me do a pro bono case, which I want to talk about on behalf of a female CIA trainee wife and daughter of Navy SEALs, who was sexually assaulted by a colleague in the building, and who was, in my view, just terribly abused and illegally treated by the agency afterwards. And my firm's given me basically unlimited leash and resources to vindicate her rights.
Hey, so just on that note, real quickly, then let's give do you want to? Can you give a little plug for your law firm, just so people know who? Because look, that's good work right there. So any business that's allowing one of its senior, most, good talent to go out there and do stuff that doesn't bring money into the law firm, well, that's thumbs up. So you want to give them a shout out?
Thanks. Yeah, the name of the law firm is Hughes Hubbard and Reed. It's been around since about the 1880s, and they take pro bono seriously. They really do, and they encourage lawyers who are there to go do public service, including the sharp-edged kinds, and they're welcome to come back.
Hey, and then before we just kind of go in there, so here right away, you just got a comment just on that from Angry Viking Veteran. Kudos to you, Kevin. And seriously, that's it. And I mean it seriously. That's, Angry Viking Veterans, right? But we all know it. I mean, that is what we need to see happening in the world today, right? And so good on you, good on your law firm. Oh, and you know what? I'm going to bring you up, and I've got to go find that article because I want to show that article that you just wrote as well. A little bit of a spoiler. Kevin just wrote a really good piece for a newspaper. Yeah, right. Who was that for, Kevin?
This is the Memorial Day one.
Yeah, the Memorial Day one.
Yeah, that was for my local Catholic newspaper. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so do you want to? I don't. Before we get into the really heavy, you already know where I'm going with this because you saw my phone or something. But before we get into the meat of it, and maybe I should let you, because how does it go in a court of law? Does the defense get to start first or the prosecution?
Prosecution, you're the prosecutor. You're the prosecutor.
Well, I'm going to let you go while I try to get that link up and pulled up so I can share with everybody on that article. But let's talk about how certain generals in certain countries have so many phones you don't even know how to get in contact with them anymore. To include some people who are still doing it in America today.
So in that country we were at, it seemed like a lot of the Iraqi sheikhs. Oops, I said the country. Sorry, a lot of the sheikhs. And,
hey, way to go, dude! You have been out of it for. See how I didn't say it.
They did tend to have a lot of phone numbers, and I seem to change jobs pretty often, and it's Mark's fault. He can't keep up with where I'm at, so he's always calling old numbers that are no longer associated with me, and I've been given over to some dating service or something like that.
Well, okay. There's a lot of truth in that right there. So, I'm not joking. I think I still have 6 different phone numbers for Kevin here in my phone right now. And it's I got to just go through and just delete them at some point. But it's the funny part. So before we get into the serious conversation, is that was what kind of our life was like. And then you'd be sitting there talking to some dude, and doing your spy crap. And then you'd be like, hey, where'd you get that? What's that phone? Oh, that's when you didn't tell me, but well, you never asked me. That was always the kind of well, you just never asked me. Dude, that's not how this is supposed to work. All right, Kevin, while I pulled this up, let's just get into the serious thing, and then I'll save this for a little bit later. The link, I'll share that with everybody because I really did think that was a good article. So good on you for writing that. But so within the agency, and I think maybe I'll try to get a nice softball up there and see if you know what you hit out of it. I mean, this is your wheelhouse, not mine, but just as we do these live streams, it's mostly about gear and other businesses and people in this world. But I thought this would be a good place to kind of demonstrate, this isn't a political conversation. This is a human conversation. So if you think this is Republican, this or Democrat, that, just go sit at the kiddie table. In life, we know that there's truth, there's injustice, there's somewhere the shady area, the gray in between. And I think, when you get into certain entities, we all want to have faith in everything that our government does, but that's just not the reality. And matter of fact, and maybe that's the wrong way of looking at things. Maybe we should be questioning. That's why I just put that up there. Maybe we should be questioning every little aspect of authority in our government. Kevin, without kind of setting it up, but does that help you kind of segue into where you want to go?
It absolutely does. I'll say some of the things that happened to my client and then why I think they happened, which go along the lines of what Marcus said. So she was told that she was not allowed to report her assault to law enforcement, which is unlawful. She was told that if she reported her assault to law enforcement, she had to make materially false statements to law enforcement about people's names and their cover status and where things happened and so forth. She was told that if she got psychological help, which would be necessary if somebody tried to rape you in your office place, that she'd become a counterintelligence problem and wouldn't be able to continue her career. She was told that if she continued to speak about her assault, that she could be sued successfully for defamation, which was completely unrealistic and not really the place of the agency to tell her. Then we decided to just go forward because we were continually being misinformed by the agency about certain things, to make a complaint to local law enforcement, just like anyone else, and would do in that situation. And local law enforcement, the police department, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office handled it magnificently, and frankly took a lot more care with protecting the cover of everybody involved than the agency has subsequently. And her assailant was convicted. And one of the things that they did along the line is, in an attempt to intimidate her from testifying against this guy, they leaked a bunch of her workplace instant messages, which could be read in a false light to suggest that she'd had an extramarital affair. One, she hadn't. Two, it doesn't matter if you have sex with everybody else in the world if you don't consent to having sex with somebody else who tackles you from behind in a stairwell at work. And what they did was grossly illegal. And we've filed suit in federal court about that. And I think, going back to the things Mark was saying, one of the problems at the agency is that it's very insular. You have some people that join at 22 and stay till they're 62. And it's the only life they've ever known. And they sort of don't understand how things are done or not done in the rest of the real world. And two,
Hey, Kevin, do you mind real quickly, just before you go into part two, I kind of want you to, because, from a humanistic perspective, some people may not understand why that's important, what you just said. I mean, that environment, like, I'm not trying to sidebar or go into a different direction. I think this adds to what Kevin's point is. I'll be the first to admit it was a drug to me. I was addicted. It was a drug. I didn't care if I was never in America. I didn't care how many combat tours you just get addicted to. Hey, I'm out there crushing it. I'm out there recruiting people. I'm working with these tier 1 units and we're, slaying shit, like, it can be a drug. I mean, and for some people, it wasn't the glamour of the shitholes where Kevin and I were. It's the glamour of the glamour, right? Of what you think, a spy is and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if I didn't want to sidebars, Kevin, but I think that was important what you kind of said there.
No, it's true. People often join at a young age and they've never worked anywhere else. And as you said, it's a sexy job. It's a meaningful job, and you get to do some exciting stuff. And they will do nothing that might get them in trouble with the organization, even if it means doing the right thing. And the longer they're there, for cover reasons, the harder it is for them to get a job on the outside as well. And so, in my observation, people tend to start making some bad moral and ethical decisions. And then it becomes a perfect storm. There are legitimate issues of secrecy and cover, which may not, by law, be used to cover up crime or things like that, but they can be, they are sometimes. Also, you're dealing with civil servants, often young civil servants, that just don't have financial resources to fight the government on a legal issue when the government has, as a practical matter, unlimited legal resources. And so they act abusively towards employees in ways that you just wouldn't get away with in the private sector. And you wouldn't even get away with if you were like a cop or a fireman, and belonged to a union, and they didn't have these clandestine cover issues involved. So it's just a ripe environment for women to be abused, frankly, and for people to do dishonest and unethical things and get away with them in a way that you just couldn't elsewhere. I mean, if I did 1/100th of some of the things that I saw there, I'd get fired from my law firm so fast.
And not even to, again, bring it into the political side, because again, this isn't a Democrat Republican, but to Kevin's point, I just wanted to echo this. There's some things that you just could never get away with, right? And then, you take that, extrapolate that, and then take it to even higher levels. And, and that I guess where I'm also trying to go, Kevin, and maybe when, I don't know, again, because I don't know if this is an ongoing case, how much you can really talk about it, but I think you and I could at least dance around some of the still cover related issues and talk about some anecdotal evidence, because I guess why I really wanted to do this podcast is because here we have this singular event, but it's not a singular event. This is emblematic, or maybe it's not. I don't want to throw, the baby out with the bathwater. It's not like this is a rampant problem, but these types of problems, I saw them through my almost 10-year career. I saw them multiple times, and it wasn't just necessarily the sexual harassment, well, again, whether you want to take that into a sexual assault or not, but on a wider variety of issues where people were knowingly doing things or acting in such ways that, as Kevin just said, you would never get away with that in any other sector. And I remember one of the first times I called bullshit, and I'm like, hey, we're not in the military here, dude. You're not my, commanding officer. You're not my battalion commander, my first sergeant. I'm like, I'm this rank. You're this. Yeah, you're in a position of authority, but you don't get to just talk to me that way. Matter of fact, why don't we just open the door and get a third person in here right now? Because I'm calling bullshit on this. Kevin, I saw you smile on that. You know what I'm getting at here.
Something that I found unusual, having been in both the military and the agency, was that people picture the military as being very hierarchical. And yeah, it is in the sense that people are in uniform and they're wearing ranks. But after you've been in it a few years, if you've got an issue that needs to come to the attention of a senior commander or a senior staff non-commissioned officer, you can bring it to them, right? And it'll get dealt with. Whereas my experience in the agency was that these people were absolutely like lords in the castle, and just totally unapproachable. Unless you're in a similar rank to them. And again, that's not healthy and that's not good. Good military unit, as you'll have, a senior field grade, even general officer, just walking around, popping up places, asking the guys how they're doing and what's going on, so that they have a feel for what's happening. And there's chaplains and NCOs and all sorts of other people to help give them a pulse of the place. Not there. It was a hermetically sealed environment and the most hierarchical I've ever seen. I mean, compared to law firm, compared to senior civilian government jobs that I've been in.
I think that, just to kind of keep that conversation going, I was so, I was mind boggled. I was just baffled by some of, like, in my first couple of years, some of the comments that were made to me by quote unquote leadership. I use that air quotes because it really was management, not leadership. But it was exactly what you just said there, Kevin. It was just this closed-minded. I remember one time, and now, Kevin, you probably know exactly the case I'm talking about. I can't say it, but so when new officers come, or there's these things. Well, whatever. There's these things called turnovers or handovers, handoffs, whatever you want to call it. But so there's a guy you've recruited and he's working, and now another case officer has to handle that officer, or whatever. But I had a case like that, and I immediately just saw all these weird, like, that's not right, and there's certain procedures, certain steps and measures we use to always, like, trust but verify. I'll just say it that way, right? And so, like, everything was smelling like crap. I'm like, this isn't right. And so I did things that were totally within my purview as a case officer. You got to write up your ops plan and all this stuff. It's got to get approved, blah, blah, blah. And then I got yelled at for doing it afterwards because it produced a negative result, a very, like, red flag, like, oh, hang on a second. This is not really cool at all. Like, we may have missed something big here. And I got yelled at, and somebody said, you're not in the Marine Corps anymore. And they called me by my traveling name. And I'm like, well, A, I was never in the Marine Corps. And B, I don't know what the hell that has to do with anything. I'm in the CIA right now. And when I was in the military, we were taught to be independent, critical thinkers. I'm a squad leader leading my own, like, 8 guys on what could be the last of our lives ever mission, so I had a lot of that kind of critical thinking and anonymity, or, maybe not that, but there, to your point, Kevin, you just said it, and that made me really think of it. It's like, I would just remember, like, hold on, I thought I was coming to the place that was going to be the tip of the spear. This is so regressive here. So I can only imagine, Kevin, to your point, in the case you're on, what you're seeing going on as you're doing disclosure and getting more information regards to that.
It's interesting. Most lawyers realize that their reputation for candor and integrity with the court and with opposing counsel, is priceless. And somewhat contrary to the stereotype, good lawyers are really careful about marshaling that and never squandering it on any one thing. Whereas Mark and I saw a lot in the organization that people would just lie in their cables about what happened, and it would be discovered.
Hey, sorry, Kevin, 1 second. Just explain to everybody what a cable is.
A cable would be a formal written report of a meeting or some intelligence we received or something like that. And people would just bullshit in the way that if I got caught by opposing counsel doing it and they showed it to the judge and it got back to my firm, would be professional humiliation and a real career problem. And there was just all the time.
Yeah, no, it was. And so, for the boys and girls watching, if you've seen these live streams, you kind of get like none of this is rehearsed, but I was just talking to Kevin about 10 minutes before we went live, just to make sure you're like, hey, and then I hide you and then I do this, it's just really more of like the left and right limits. But we just had to bring up somebody and see Kevin smiling, laughing too. I'm not, but we brought up a shared history with a shared just total bag of Richards that we knew from that place. Do you want to use that? Because what you just described as an analogy, I think that guy actually is the dictionary definition. So, I mean, do you want to maybe go a little bit with that? Because, and also that goes into the type of stuff that you're doing right now in the case that you're on. And I could talk about, a guy who was deputy chief. And I remember some shit about him down at the farm and some of the crap he like, yeah. Oh, you probably know what I'm talking about right there then. Yeah.
And again, neither Mark or I are politically correct guys, but neither are we going to grope some woman or chase after some subordinate. And these guys would do these things in an open and conspicuous manner and not be embarrassed about it because they knew they could get away with it, because as a practical matter, they could get away with it. And it absolutely was a toxic environment. And again, not to talk around it, in the case of the individual that Mark and I are both particularly thinking of, it ended up getting a young woman killed.
Yeah. And if you're a smart person, you can maybe figure out what we're talking about, but it resulted in, well, I mean, you could argue it resulted in her life. I mean, it specifically did. I mean, we're obviously talking between the lines, but I could make a large argument. It's that attitude and that type of individual, that mentality that actually got all of those individuals killed. I mean, I don't want to stretch it, Kevin. So tell, for everybody watching, am I kind of telling the truth or am I stretching it a little bit?
No, I agree. People let personal ambitions, whether those be for advancement or for sexual gratification, you cloud their intelligence judgment on a counterterrorism case in a combat zone and got several people killed.
Yeah. 13, wasn't it? It was 13, or 12 or 13. Depends how you look at it, because there was one foreign national in there too, right? So yes. Yeah, 12 or 13. But so if anyone's ever wondered what that picture is behind me, that's kind of giving you a little bit of a clue right there. So, hey, okay. On that note, let me just take a quick break. We're at 23 minutes. We've got some comments that have come in. I want to just kind of plug what I did at the very beginning real quickly. But Kevin, what do you got? You got about another 5, maybe 10 minutes. What can we stretch?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So just for everybody here, if you didn't make it at the very beginning, I'm doing just a sale for just everybody here in the live stream. And, I know these live streams is just little old Mark Centerline system. So I actually just, as we're talking, I just right now made a command decision. I'll stretch this till 1800 Central Daylight Time, because I don't know, these things usually go about 40, 45 minutes. Give me a couple minutes to turn everything down and go in front of the computer. So until 1800 Central Daylight Time, it's a 30% off sale, kind of designed for all you great men and women here on the live stream. The code, the code you use is an abbreviation for winner, chicken dinner, and then the year. So it's whiskey, Charlie Delta. So that's WWCD, and then the year 2024. And then we've got, I think we left off with Angry Viking saying kudos to you, Kevin. Then we had Stranger coming in saying hello, brother, and everyone. John, hey, John, good to see you, brother. Coming in just saying, hey, just tuned in, so I'm late. Oorah. Oh, you got to love the oorahs. And then, Al, I see your comment, but I'm going to save that for another time regarding the barbecue aprons. I'm either going to bring that up on Thursday or a week from now. All right, so we're kind of caught up on comments. All right, Kevin, do you want to get back into the specifics of those type of cases, or should we take it a little bit more into like just the dangers that, because look, that wasn't just a CIA issue. You damn well know that's taking place in many other government entities. Where do you want to go with that kind of comment of, you know, basically it's not absolute power corrupting absolutely. That's not really quite what we're talking about, but it is an organizational essence, or that rice bowl, and that closed-minded, or we don't really allow outsiders to come in and inspect us and keep us, you know, and there's no real checks and balances in there. So where do you want to go with that, Kevin?
I agree 100%. I mean, I think at this stage of my career, I think in the younger stage of my career, I just reflexively supported any institution involved in national security, and having been around a bunch of them, you know, for about 30 years now. You absolutely need the press looking into them. You absolutely need inspectors generals looking into them. You absolutely need congressional oversight, because it's too easy for misconduct to be allowed to fester if people think they're never going to be looked at. And in some organizations, either because of the secrecy involved, or because they are, you know, sort of the most powerful organization in their field, they're confident that they're never going to be looked at, and that's when bad things happen. I like to make an analogy that, you know, I don't cheat on my expense account, and I hope that's because my parents raised me well, and I want my children to respect me and want to hear at church on Sunday. But you know what? The fact that somebody audits that stuff, you know, and I could get fired if I if I put in a false report, also helps, you know, me not do it. And I think there's not enough auditing of what's going on in some parts of the government.
You know, on that note right there, so we all talk about groupthink, or, when I talk about like an organizational essence, you know, like what is it? What is the core values, or how does that entity define itself? You know, and to Kevin's point right there. So I'm a paramilitary, a ground branch officer. I'm out doing combat patrols. Is there really, am I on the clock for only 8 hours? Am I on the clock for 24 hours? Kind of to your point, Kevin. You know, it's so I always, you know, my whole career, I was like, hey, I literally seriously was awake for 18 hours today. And then I had 2 hours of, like, you know, defecating and eating food. And then I maybe got 4 hours of sleep, you know, that but instead of saying I worked 18 hours, I just would say I worked 12 hours because of what Kevin just said. You know, and to that point, Kevin, and maybe you can go with this. I remember two guys came down to a place where I was chief once, and they were coming down to support something and helping out. And I, as the chief, had to approve their time and attendance, their time cards. And they just like basically like those firefighters, you know, out in Los Angeles who've got more overtime than there actually are hours in a year, you know, like that's totally impossible. It was that kind of shit. And I try to give them I'm like, fellas, there's just no effing way. I'm the chief, and I'm working twice as much as you guys, and you're claiming you worked. And they one guy argued with me, Kevin, and I'm like, okay, well then, you know, whatever. But to the point we're making, in his office, that was maybe accepted practice. Yeah. Nothing effing happened.
I had a funny incident at another fine law firm, where another partner asked me to do a bit of research on something, and I probably spent an hour and a half on it, and I put down an hour on the bill, because she's always put a little bit less than you did, just so nobody ever questions your integrity, yep. Right? But in entering it, instead of writing 1.0, I wrote 10.0, and just totally by accident. And she was so gentle but firm when she came back, saying, "Kevin, I was surprised that it took you 10 hours to do this." I was, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, you know what I mean? That was just an entry error. I'm sorry, we fixed it.
Yeah, but that was 1 hour, not
somebody called me out on it, as they should have. And I'm glad they did.
Well, and then so on that note, and so again, for everybody, you know, who watches this, whether you're watching this live or if you catch this later on demand, you know, I think really, you know, when Kevin and I were talking about this, you know, we can tell all these jokes about this one guy who we won't name and all the, well, I'll just say something like this. You don't want to, I don't want to like take a giant turd on the organization, because you need some form of an intelligence organization, whether we go back to the OSS or create something different. You know, I'll let Kevin kind of weigh in here on his thoughts on that as we start wrapping it up. But there has to be better accountability, because I'm not going to lie. The thing that made my fun meter finally pegged, and I just said, I'm done with you guys, was exactly this type of stuff we're talking about right here. It wasn't the tip of the spear. I'd seen too many people shady shit, or like what Kevin is representing, like straight up, like, okay, man, what the hell? And then everybody's just burying that stuff under the rug or looking the other way, or the nepotism, hey, here's a guy who's clearly a danger to himself and others. But because he's buddies with some senior, like SIS, ones and twosy kind of guys, like that's like general, brigadier or major generals, like, the lower rank generals at that level, if you want to use a military analogy. But because of that nepotism, then that person's spouse is over here. And then now we're doing tactical movements so they can spend time with each other. Just that shit was, I mean, Kevin, I don't want to, again, I'm kind of rock and a hard place. I don't want to poo-poo it, but I also want to tell the truth. Where do you want to go with that? I mean, call me out if you think you didn't see that, or if I'm just exaggerating.
We saw all those things. And I think a lot of times in the national security sphere, an organization will serve a purpose and then sort of outgrow that purpose, and a new organization is made to do it. And I think we've seen that several times in the special operations community, not necessarily in a negative way, right? And new special mission units have been developed to do certain things, and then there's tiers of special mission units. My guess is that, having been around now for 75 years or whatever, that there needs to be a sort of tier one version of CIA that's a little bit more selective and has somewhat higher standards.
I did not see that comment coming from you. Do you want to expound upon that a little bit more? Because I like your idea, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.
I mean, like, if you look, I'll just use the Army for example, right? You've got the Airborne, which is wonderful, and you've got the Rangers, which are cut above that. You've got the Special Forces, which are equal to or cut above that, and then you have a very elite, a couple of very elite special mission units, and they're progressively harder to get into. And I think also, as you sort of go up that chain, they're given progressively more authorities and progressively more freedom and responsibility to do different things. And I think it's time that there's maybe something that supersedes the CIA to deal with some of the hardest targets.
Would you, let me just come back here. I'm just going to pop up some comments while we're talking. So, okay, I didn't see this being part of the conversation, but I'm an advocate for this. I definitely think throughout our whole USG writ large, we really need to take a step back and then reassess how all of these entities, whether it's the IRS, or the ATF or the FBI, again, the list is long here of, it's 148 years this July 4th since the creation of this country. And a lot of shit has happened in 148 years. The Constitution hasn't changed. And, those words are still those words, but who we are as a nation, who we are as a government, and how these bureaucracies and these entities work. I actually would be an advocate for some type of total, completely open where possible. Obviously, there's going to be areas where it needs to be closed door. You maybe have HIPSI, the House Intelligence or the Senate Intelligence committees come into play, so it's a little bit more because of just sensitivities. And it's not a joke. I remember once somebody blew my cover in front of a bunch of unknown people in a bar one time, and I almost lost my shit. I mean, you have no idea who's listening. You really don't. I mean, and when you're a spy, quote unquote, I'm still weirded. It's taken me, I've been out of the agency since 2012. It's taken me almost 12 years to kind of just even warm up to even mention it, Kevin. Do you kind of see where I'm going with that?
You were very, very cover sensitive when you were there, which is not a criticism. You took it very seriously.
Well, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
So, okay. So how do we do that then going into your newsletter that I want to subscribe to? Should we be tearing things down and recreating? And would you make an OSS version of it that works more directly with the tier one and those more advanced special, SMUs, you might hear say special mission units, but what are your thoughts?
I would, and not to go too deep down a rabbit hole, but to pursue some of the targets that need to be pursued in a commercial fashion. I think you'd need to have commercially covered programs done in a much more depth and professional way that they are. And the organization would have to have pretty tight relations with some of the top investment banks, consulting firms, law firms, accounting firms, and stuff like that to make that doable in a way that the very sophisticated services of some of our allies and adversaries do.
Okay, hey, I got excuse me, just a few comments that came up, but one I think is directly in your wheelhouse that I'd like you to answer. So we got Angry Viking Veteran first off saying, if everyone had integrity, we wouldn't need lawyers. Yeah, which mentions, like, I love the because everybody says, oh, who needs lawyers? Well, that's the other side of the coin. Angry. Well, we wouldn't if people would have integrity and follow the law and, follow their values, right? Then we got Dustin. He's been on before.
Lawyers need lawyers. I mean, my firm has a general counsel who I have to run stuff past, or who grabs me by the collar every now and again because we need them to.
Well, in here, and just to maybe, if you want to bring this up, we need a lawyer. You still need lawyers even at those upper tiers, those highest level echelons, because you still have to be taken, and you, as well, you should. Now, a lawyer shouldn't be canceling your op plan. Hey, we're going to go kill bin Laden, and then a lawyer says, "Yeah, I'm just not sure I like your rules of engagement." Okay. I'm actually kind of okay with that. But if a lawyer says, and then the con op is approved, and then it's like, yeah, but you killed people. Like, yeah, that's what we did. Well, now you guys are going to be held up on war crimes and possible criminals. Like, you guys approved my con op, So on that note, Kevin, I'm sorry, rabbit hole. Remember when, well, maybe it wasn't so much for you, but over on my side, we were all being told to get personal liability insurance. And I was like, why do I need that? You're approving my con ops at the highest levels. Because
you need
lawyer
insurance. I can tell you from the outside now, so that you can retain somebody good who's your lawyer if something goes wrong.
Hey, I was laughing over you laughing. Can you just say that whole thing one more time, please?
No, I listen. I've dealt with clients whose hash has been saved by the fact that they took out a professional liability insurance policy, and when something went sideways in the national security sphere, they had an insurer who was willing to cover the 7-figure bills to dig them out of it. And I get Mark's good point that there should be immunity, perhaps, but the government decides who's immune and who's not. And if they decide you're not immune, you don't want to be paying for a good lawyer out of your GS salary or your.
Well, and I don't mean immunity like my lie and whatever that.
No.
Lieutenants. Yeah, I don't mean it that's an obvious war crime. But if I'm going on target and this is a kill capture prime, like we're gonna go there and kill people and maybe capture them, but I'm not gonna jeopardize or risk my forces. Like, in other words, because I had somebody saying, well, just go capture people. I'm like, what movie did you just watch? What do you think I'm gonna be? We're gonna like sneak down there and hide in trees and ninja rope them up, the last guys. Like, what are you fucking talking about? But all right, I'm taking us down a rabbit hole. And I maybe should let me just finish this comment because I want to get to this one comment, which is for you. So we left off with Dustin. He's a great guy. Owns he makes handcrafted cowboy boots, Ducks Heritage leather out there. Dustin, great to see you. Thanks for joining the live. But this one is what I wanted to come back to you for, Kevin. And we're at 38 minutes, so I don't want to stretch it too far. I know you got a busy schedule, and I'm here to tell you, boys and girls, this whole coordinating thing has been pretty funny too. He does have a busy schedule, so. Here it is. Angry Viking Veteran says, yeah, it was always funny that lower enlisted would get busted for domestic abuse, but somehow field grade officers got admin counseling.
It's different spanks for different ranks. And I see it all the time. And there's just no justification for it as an American or as a Christian. I mean, it's just, you have to hold, you have to treat equal cases equally, across races and across classes and everything else like that. You must, but it's not. We all know that it's not done that way. You know what I mean? If, like I said, with a domestic abuse case or with the DUI, coming on post, if the gate guard, catches the E3 with beer on his breath, he's going to get treated differently than the generals coming in with beer on his breath. It's true and it's wrong.
And it is. And I think if we could get back to a place where it really was, Kevin, the only thing I don't see behind you that I wish would have seen is that true justice. She should be blind. And that's what it should be. Hey, I don't give a shit who you are. If you did it, you did it. And there's some things, again, not getting into it, but we all know there's some shit going on that, and well, Kevin, go back and replay. Kevin said at the very beginning, there's stuff that Kevin and I, if we would have done even 1/100th of that, when we were brand new GS12s, 11s, 13s, we would have been in so much trouble. And here's a senior person who's supposed to know better, and they're doing it like, you know, on an incredibly egregious scale. Yeah. Kevin, I want to do one thing here before you go. We're at almost 40 minutes. I want to just give everybody a chance to see, and I'm going to disappear for a second, but everybody should be able to see this. And I'm going to, oh, here, let me actually just come back and I'll do this at the same time. Let me show that. So now you can see the URL, but this is an article Kevin just wrote for Memorial Day weekend. Shared this with me in a text. I actually really liked it. I think the message in there was awesome. You don't have to be a Catholic. You could be an atheist. I don't give a shit, but you know, you should read this article. It's a good article, and Memorial Day was just behind us, and Independence Day is just in front of us. So, you know, if you get a chance, you know, copy this URL, go give it a read, and then you'll get a better sense of who this man is that we're talking to right now, because it's pretty damn cool. So,
Mark, that I appreciate that very much. I put a lot of thought into that into that article. It's you know, we both know several guys that have been killed, and that article was really about one guy in particular, and I've wrestled with why him and not me for 12 years, and writing that helped. So thank you.
Well, I mean, God bless you for doing it. So that's, yeah. And I think, you know, for my little closing comments, then I'll bring it back over to you for your closing comments, Kevin, for whatever you want to share with everybody. Is like, that's, you know, community, just like life and just like your family. You're not going to agree with everyone on everything. But if you're an adult and if you're a rational human being, you can work through those differences. You should be able to have a rational conversation and lay out your, why would you ever be afraid of having well, okay, I see what you're saying, but this is made out of, you know, what, and it weighs it, whatever the argument is. You don't have to be vindictive. You don't have to be like poking people in the eye. Adults can have differences. Adults can have adult conversations and work their way through it. Hell, that's what actually probably brings about. I remember some of the best, you know, going back to our agency times, it's when two people have completely different views, and then you find, and suddenly you stumble into, well, that's a way better ops plan that I can, you know, that's what we should be doing. So,
yeah,
Kevin,
you know, one of my favorite officers who I served with was a little bit more experienced than me, and he would really read everybody's ops cables and you know, the sort of operational plans that were put out in draft. And he would walk over and just cards up, be like, "Hey, why'd you decide to do that? Why'd you?" And I think at first people thought that he was busting their chops. He wasn't. You know what I mean? He was generally seeing if maybe they'd seen an angle he hadn't, and so often he had a thing that they should consider. And you know, he had integrity, as you do, and as you did in that place with 4 letters where we met 22 years ago and kept my ass alive.
Right on, my good man. Hey, I'm just going to give you the final way out as I bring up the last 2 comments for you. And then I know you got a busy life. And by the way, you know, guy's trying to raise his own fire team. And, you know, besides being a highfalutin, you know, powerful lawyer, he's also a family man who's got a bunch of other stuff to do, right? You know, besides talk to us knuckleheads. So Gene from across the pond, I don't know if you can see that, Kevin. Gene is actually one of our listeners and watchers, followers from overseas. He says, thank you very much for, you know, being here tonight, and you've done great work. So thanks, Gene, for that comment. Then Angry Viking Veteran. He hasn't read your article yet, but he has stayed up all night asking that same damn question about buddies he's lost. So I feel you, brother. So yeah, thanks, Angry Viking. And seriously, go give it a read. I think, you know, it'll be worth your time. And hopefully Kevin will be doing more of that kind of stuff in the future about other things. So again, you don't have to be a Catholic or a Christian or the sentiment is, it's there. If you're a human being, you know, dying are obvious, right? And then, okay, now we got 2 more now they're coming in fast and furious, Kevin. Snowshoe Dave, thank you for the insight, Kevin. I will definitely read the article that you wrote. My eyes have been opened a bit more. All right, well, that's what it's all about, Snowshoe. So thank you. And well, really, hats off to Kevin. It's not really me. I'm just your host who's got a face for radio and a voice for silent film. And then we got John saying, sorry to interrupt. I'm on a shopping spree, but it seems the coupon code isn't taking. Here, I'll just do the coupon code for everybody to see it. Winner chicken dinner 2024. Sorry, that has nothing to do. I don't even want to take away from what we're talking about, but there, I'll just leave that up there. That's the coupon code, John. Kevin, 44 minutes. Can you give us 1 or 2 more minutes of just some good insight and whatever you got for your final comments, sir?
No, sure. Just thanks to Mark. Thanks to everybody out there for what we're doing. Just tending our own little gardens, right? Trying to keep this country moving forward in a good way. I think that we're, regardless of our political views, I think everybody recognizes we're going through some difficult times right now. And if we can be, as Mark said, just sort of respectful of each other and honest with each other, we'll all be in a better place soon, we hope.
Yeah, amen. Amen to that. All right, my good man. Hey, I'm gonna say goodbye to you. Now, but on a serious note, I always like to talk to everybody afterwards just for a quick AR, but I'm going to do about 2 minutes. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to do 2 minutes to try to address this code. If I give you a call in about, well, I think he just said, I saw him looking over. So his secretary was like, get off the damn live stream. You're only supposed to do it for 30 minutes. It's been 45. All right. Hey, John and everybody out there. If there's an issue with the code, I actually did it earlier and I tested it. Should work. So John, I don't know if you want to give me a call and let me know what's going on, but I'm going to do one of two things. If I see that there's an error or an issue, then I'll leave the code open until 1900 if there's an issue. If there's not an issue and maybe it's on your side, John, no, it worked. Okay, there you go. So it's working. So on that note, I'll leave the code up until 1800. That'll give me a chance to do my after action review with Kevin real quickly, and then I'll come in and I'll turn the code off. So between now and 1800, that code that's on the screen right now, winner, winner, chicken dinner 2024. Yeah, maybe I should have said that. It's got to be all one word. Or it's all combined. I don't think it has to be all uppercase, but it does have to be combined. So, and then Angry Viking, I want to just give you, right there. Thanks. God bless you too, sir. Yeah. And those questions that you're dealing with. Yeah. Good. Yeah. I get you, brother. And then, John, John just said, Marine Corps didn't teach me how to spell. Well, they did, but you had to use a crayon and most of you guys ate your crayon. So you couldn't learn how to spell. I mean, ching something. I mean, come on, it's good natured. All right. Thanks, John. I appreciate that nice little joke at the end. All right, boys and girls. Wherever you are, I really appreciate it. That was about the more, and I don't think any of that was political, but that's about as political as we're going to get on these live streams. If you even think that's political, that was just, we got to do better. We've got to do better. We've got to police ourselves better. We just have to do better, or it really is just, then we got no one to blame for us. Stay tuned. Blake and I have been talking quite a bit over the last week about getting that other social media platform going and having some more robust conversations like this conversation, but even more robust. It's all about coming to the adult table. If you're sitting at the kiddie table and you think, oh, I just don't like talking, then go sit at the kiddie table, right? If you don't think we're in the adult table times right now, I don't know what to say. I mean, and that goes in because then you probably feel the same way. It's like, oh, it's just a hike in the woods and Mother Nature is awesome and would never do anything bad to me. I don't know what to say to you anymore at this point. So that's about as political as we're going to get. We got a really good guest coming on Thursday. Chappie is his name. He's from the Arizona Vet Trail Program. We're going to sit and talk about the great work that him and his group and he himself and the other people that work in that organization are doing out there in the West, towards the West Coast, trying to use nature as a way to help vets get out there and just get their head straight and some cool stuff. So he's our guest for Thursday. 1700 Central Daylight as always. I just got to throw this out there. So we had the John saying the Marine didn't teach me how to spell. Then AVV Angry Viking came in with like LOL because he knew the joke. And then John had a great comment. I'm partial to the green ones. See, I knew it. That wasn't much of a stretch. John likes the green crayons. I don't know. Maybe they taste like spinach. I don't know. Thanks, John, for the comments and have fun and rolling with the punches here tonight, my good man. All right, boys and girls, we're going to wrap it up. That's 50 minutes. Stay tuned. We'll have more information coming, like I said, down the pike regarding the other programs and the other more community self-reliance teaching and stuff. So I'm continuing to work that on the backside. We've just been doing a whole bunch of stuff. I'll just kind of let you know. So I've already done some training 2 weeks ago with some people on a Saturday and probably doing some training with some folks on this Saturday, kind of along some of these lines. So just stay tuned. We're going to find a way to get that into this type of format and be able to share with people as much as we can, because Lord knows we all need to be working together right now. And And I guess, you know, hey, no harm, no foul. If you think that's all bullshit and sky's falling and Chicken Little, well, yeah, you do you. One of us is wrong and one of us is right. I hope you're the one who's right. I really do. I hope you're right. All right, that's it for tonight, boys and girls. Reach out anytime if you got questions, comments. I'll do the best I can to help you out. You guys know that. You've heard it all the time. I got to come up with a better, you know, outro. But until then, boom, keep thinking, keep moving, never quit. All right, everybody, be good. We'll see you on Thursday.